Path of Exile's Talkative Try here with Born Ready to talk all things Path of Exile 2. Before we dive into the PoE 2 talk though, Born, could you just give a brief intro for yourself for viewers who might not know who you are?
Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay. Just an Australian guy that likes playing games. That's pretty much it. I've been playing games since I was a kid. My mum still says she bought me a PS1 thinking I'd put it down within a week, and I just haven't stopped. So that's pretty much where I'm at. Started making videos about 12-ish months ago, like kind of seriously. I put out once a week, and yeah, I just love talking about games, playing games. I'm just all over the place.
That's awesome, man. Now, yeah, 12 months ago, your content piqued my interest when, of course, I make lots of Path of Exile 2 videos. I used to search on YouTube a lot for Path of Exile 2. And what did I see on my recommended tab one day? Born Ready, Path of Exile 2 video. And I was like, oh man, new creator. Let's hop on board. Let's listen. And it was a damn fine video, dude. It was great.
Thanks.
And it's just,
Appreciate
it always
it.
makes me so happy to see other people who are equally as passionate about games that I'm excited about, especially new and upcoming creators. And you went like poof, to the moon, man. I mean, your class video, is that like what, 250,000 views? That's awesome.
It's closing on 300, yeah.
Oh my
300,000, which
God.
I just still don't know how. It's just to the moon, yeah.
That's
Well, for
so
me anyway,
awesome.
for me.
Yeah, dude, that's huge. That's absolutely massive. Every time you break over, honestly, like I feel good every time I hit 10,000 views in a video still. Seriously, I do, because
Yeah.
it's like that's like a stadium in my state. Like that's a stadium of
Yeah, it's a
people
good point,
who
actually.
are
I hadn't thought
watching.
about that, yeah.
Right? So it's not like they're sitting there and, watching a 3-hour video or anything. The average view duration might be, like 7, 8, 9 minutes, whatever. But still, that many people came in, sat down, watched the video. That's really cool. So you've been doing awesome work, man. And a lot of it relates to Path of Exile 2. And obviously it launched 5 days ago. We're on day 5 of early access. Gotta ask everybody, what are your initial impressions on PoE 2 so far?
Like it's gonna sound over the top, but it is just a perfect game. Like it's obviously the foundation's there, right? Like there's obviously bugs, balance issues, stuff like that to be expected. But I there's no foundational system that I have a real problem with. My biggest issue really was some of the drop rates and some of the crafting materials. But I'll caveat that with saying I've run the campaign once. So I'm at endgame now. I've done like 15-ish maps. But I've only run through once, and I ran through as a witch with minions, which I've heard a lot of people say easy mode, easy mode. Look, minions have always been my thing. I couldn't help it. I had to go in. And they just did so much of that system. Minions are like so much more active as a playstyle. But yeah, just perfect game. They've really perfectly matched the ARPG systems I love with like the skill-based combat of the Soul series that I love. I wouldn't say it's like really Soulsy, but you know what I mean. Like mixing those two together has been insane.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I haven't played a lot of Dark Souls, but I am a connoisseur of YouTube content about Dark Souls. And this game doesn't seem Soulsy at all. The boss fights have telegraphed moves. The bosses are hard, but dude, I mean, as a Minion player, you already know this, but I'm going through Cruel right now on my monk, and I'm killing bosses in 5 seconds. Literally.
Same.
That's not a
Yeah.
Souls game. I mean, maybe if you get a
No,
really
no, no.
busted build or whatever, but that still doesn't happen like when you're playing through the first run of the campaign or whatever, with not a build that's in endgame yet. On the Witch, are you getting that same sort of experience? Like, has it been kind of just cruising through bosses, or have you failed at all? Because I watched a clip of Asmon fighting the Act 2 boss for the first time, and he just one-shot it, but he didn't even have to really move. His minions were just pounding it, and he was just like going left and right. And then me, I'm spamming my keyboard. I'm like dodging left and right. I'm going crazy. I'm sweating. I'm shaking. Was that your experience or no?
Wasn't my experience, but I went for like a hybrid minion with fire build. I'm trying to make that infernalist playstyle work, bringing ignite into the minions, that kind of stuff. So I think I split my damage a little bit too much, and I was mediocre on both sides. So the Act 2 boss, that was probably my hardest position. But I noticed once I got past Act 3 into Cruel, I powered through Cruel. Like no boss caused me any troubles. I destroyed them all pretty quickly. I think there might be some balance needed there, unless I just got a bit lucky with the build and with the items I picked up as I went.
I'm so glad you're bringing that up, because like I just said, I'm blasting through it too. Man,
Yeah.
Cruel Act 1 took me an hour. I was like, I was shook. I was just going through every single boss, blasting it down. The Act 1 Cruel boss, 20 seconds. I was shocked. So maybe we're just getting really lucky with drops, or maybe, yeah, there's some balancing that needs to be done there.
Potentially.
I don't know. because
There's also the game knowledge, right? Like we both played PoE 1. I mean, I've got like a little over 1,000 hours in PoE 1, so I'm not like one of those mega players. It's still good hours though, right?
Yeah.
So it's like coming in with that knowledge. You have an idea, you know, you want to get your resistances, you know, to like how to multiply your damage. You know your way around the skill tree, even though it's a different skill tree. You know your way around. So I think that knowledge definitely helps.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you bring that up. So I'm going to use brand new player example. And I know
Yep.
everybody's like, oh, well, is it a really new player? My wife, she's sitting right over there actually right now. She played Path of Exile 1 to Act 5, and then she bounced. She did not like the game. She, like we talked about before starting the pod, played today for a few hours after I stopped streaming. And she's been going through and she's like, it's really not that hard. Like I'm understanding it. She did Trial of the Sekima by herself for the first time, 0 deaths, which is now better than my record, which was multiple deaths. So, you know, I'm really curious what might be causing people issues. I wonder if those who are trying to go quickly through the game, maybe like a typical like Diablo. I'm gonna use Diablo as a great example, okay? I bet a lot of Diablo 4 players are trying out Path of Exile 2 because of the crazy reception it's getting and the crazy press it got. You can blast through that game very easily, and you can run and you can gather lots of mobs, and you're not going to die. Sometimes you're not even going to need to press your health potion. If you do that in Path of Exile 2, you are done. Absolutely done. Right? Have you been doing any of that? Like, have you been getting lots of groups of monsters unless, you know, you feel like, oh, I can deal with it, or no?
Not really. I mean, with the minions, it helps a bit, especially with the raised zombie. Like, if I've cleared an area and then I've kited a few minions back, I can just raise like 20 zombies in like a matter of seconds, and then they kind of just, it's like a slow push forward after that. But no, I've not been trying to speed through myself though. I've been wanting to take my time, enjoy it. I've been avoiding a lot of like content. I've watched a bit here and there. I watched your video on the Reddit breakdown of, you know, some people's complaints and stuff like that, and I'm sure we're going to get into that at some point. But I've largely been trying to avoid everything, so it's interesting to hear other people having the same experience. I'm going to try and get my partner into some couch co-op with me, see if I can get her interested as well. She loves Baldur's Gate 3. I got her into that, but I think the ARPG formula might not sit for her, but we'll see how we go with that one.
Hey, this ARPG seems a little bit different because lots of people I know did not like ARPGs in the past, and now they are hooked on PoE 2. And it's just really cool to see. And they've had just great experiences, and all very different experiences too. And that's something more and more that I'm coming to understand, is that depending on literally, you know, your class, your drops, how you move through a map, which rare monsters you encounter, your experience is so vastly different. And you've played 1,000 hours of Path of Exile 1, so, you know, you're still a noob, you know, NEWB, very new to the game. Do you think that Path of Exile 1, even with 10 years of content in the campaign, let's say the first 3 acts, has that varied an experience right now? Or
no? I wouldn't say so. The problem for me with Path of Exile 1, and I say it a problem, I've got 1,000 hours, love the game, so I'm nitpicking here, I'm not saying it's a bad game. A lot of builds end up feeling very similar, right? You've either got your melee hit or your spell hit. You're either throwing at the mob, it's dying, or it's not. It's dying quickly or it's not. And if it's not dying quickly, then you might have some trouble with some ground effects when they die or something like that. Path of Exile 2, I guess Path of Exile 1 is like an Excel spreadsheet. The numbers either line up or they don't. You're either winning or you're not. Path of Exile 2, you can be in the deficit pretty heavily, but if you've got the skill, you can work your way around that. And I love that type of gameplay. It's so much better than what it was in Path of Exile, for me anyway. There's definitely going to be people on either side of the fence, but I think some of the problems we might be running into, especially Act 1, and I think I did this as well, which is why I said the currency drop rates are low. I was definitely playing it a bit more like PoE 1. It's taken me a while to get out of that headspace. Obviously, I've made videos on it. I've consumed as much content as I could prior to the release, so I kind of knew what I was in for. But I think a lot of those more casual PoE 1 players who jump in and out don't really watch a lot of that content. They probably come in and they're like freaking out because, you know, you're not getting as many rare drops, so you're not getting as many drops. Although they're changing that. They tweaked it since I ran through.
Man, they have changed it massively. Have you played in the past 24 hours?
I played a little bit yesterday, and I definitely saw an increase in the drops, but it was hard for me to know whether that's because I was getting towards endgame, and I'm like, where is it at? So I'm going to probably run through Act 1 again today on a fresh character and see what the difference is like.
Yeah, that's a good idea. The change is noticeable. Not just with the currency increases, but the rare drops and the like. Oh my goodness. I'm swimming in them, and I'm eating my words too, dude. Because you said you watched my video where I was talking about all the, I classified a lot of it as hate, and maybe that wasn't necessarily the right word, but I saw a lot of people who were saying, "Kiwi too bad, we're done, I'm out." I didn't see it a lot. I didn't see a lot of criticism. The criticism I did read, I think, you know, that's well reasoned out. That's good. That's what Grinding Gear Games is looking for. I was planning on releasing a feedback video like the day after, and then that video went to the moon, and I was like, oh my God, everybody thinks that I think we shouldn't critique PoE 1, PoE 2. Of course we should. It's early access. A lot is going to change. The game has already massively changed. I mean, like dodge rolling, dude. What is your opinion on being stuck in between mobs? Okay, because I am like a purist of kill me, Grinding Gear Games. I did this to myself. Kill me. But a lot of people are like, this is crap. I want to be able to push mobs out of the way.
I did hear you talking about this, and I'm not going to sit on the fence. I lean more with you. There. I want to be able to get stuck. I want positioning to matter. I've noticed there's a few. I think some tweaks need to be made on a few select mobs. Some of them really push you around really heavily, and they can do it pretty quickly. And with some of the environments, it can be hard to see them coming. There's like, I think it's called like a charger or something. And I've had a few times where they've kind of charged me from like behind a piece of scenery, and they'll just slam me into a wall, which is a bit of a nightmare. But again, that's just a balance issue. It's not an actual foundational problem. But I think the dodge roll is in a good space. I think you need to be able to get trapped. But in saying that, I have not played a melee class yet, so I don't know if my mileage is going to vary on that. But if that's the case, I think it just needs to be like armor or something gives you the ability to push smaller minions out of the way or push other things out of the way. Like if it's a human size, like you are, you should be able to maybe roll out of it potentially.
Yeah, so they are changing it. And this is the reason why, you know, we play and Grinding Gear Games develops, because Grinding Gear Games, here's a bunch of people saying dodge rolling should be able to break through enemies and phase. And then they hear people like me saying dodge roll shouldn't be able to do that. I want to get surrounded. And they're like, all right, so let's take this feedback. Let's synthesize it and let's be geniuses. All right, so let's change the player size to 0 so that you can fit through those tiny cracks now. Yeah. And let's allow you to push tiny enemies like the beetles and Keth that totally surrounded me a million times out of the way. You know, meeting people in the middle, essentially. So I should be happy, and the people who are getting trapped constantly should also be happy because they're going to be able to break out a lot more.
Absolutely, and I think that's the perfect balance. And I reckon it is the beetles. I reckon it's stuff like the beetles that is what's causing most of that problem. Because, you know, the people going on Reddit and typing those posts, you know, they've just died for the 20th time to like the Act 2 boss or the Act 3 boss or something like that, and they're coming in from that place of frustration. They haven't really given it some time. You know, it was the same with the Soul series as well. Like the game would come out, people would play it, they'd complain it's too hard, and then a week later, everyone's loving it.
Oh, does that happen in the Soul series? So we can talk about that for just a brief moment.
It happened heavily with Elden Ring, yeah.
Really? Okay. So people came out and they said, okay, Elden Ring's too hard. What's that first boss, you know, that blocks everybody on the bridge? That guy?
Well, there's more Margit.
That guy.
Yeah, one of the two.
That's like a filter, right? I assume everybody came out and was very pissed about that, because I see right now, I think in Act 1, there's 2 filters with current balance. It's Draven and it's the final act boss man. And let's just talk about that for a moment as just pure gamers. The Geonor fight. Sorry, people in the chat who haven't fought Geonor yet. He is the final act boss. Okay, we're going to talk about him a little bit. Spoilers if you don't want to be spoiled. That fight, dude. How was your first experience fighting him?
Oh, it was fucking sick. Sorry, I do swear a bit, so profanity warning there. I'll try to keep it at a minimum. Absolutely incredible. Loved that fight. And that's where I'm saying the Souls influence. And I know they've said they've been kind of influenced by it as well. The boss fights are so well telegraphed. There's stuff that feels a little bit cheesy every now and then, but I've only gone through it once again, so that might just me getting, you get to know the mechanics. I've only done some of these boss fights 2, maybe 3 times, and sometimes you don't even get a good sense of what the spells are, especially when you kill them so quickly, right? But I think the balancing, I think the telegraphing is top tier. I'm so impressed by how well they've telegraphed so many of these boss moves. There's only one boss that I've died to where I thought, oh, I'm not sure about this one. But again, I've only tried it once or twice, so I may have just got really unlucky.
All right, name it. Name drop the boss.
Oh, well, it was I can't remember what the name was. Sorry, it was one of the Trial of Chaos bosses. Not the Bloodbird, not the Chimera, the other one. If
Wait,
that makes
there
any
are
sense.
other Trial of Chaos bosses?
Yeah. So so I assume you've done your second ascendancy with the Trial of Chaos, yeah?
Yes, I failed 5 times and then I made it. Yes.
Wait. Okay. What boss did you verse then?
I faced the Bloodbird, the giant
The Bloodbird,
Bloodbird.
yeah.
Yep.
So
Yep.
there's three different bosses you can fight there.
Oh, really? I got to the Bloodbird, what, 3 times? It was the Bloodbird every time.
Right. Okay.
Interesting.
At least I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty confident that's what it was. At least on
Ooh.
repeat playthroughs, I've definitely had that. I think that accounted for the first trial I did with the ultimatum. But if you go back, you'll notice that boss will be different. Yeah, there are 3. I can see Lonely Janae mentioning in the chat as well.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know there were different bosses that you can encounter for that first. Oh, I love it, man. That's so good.
Sorry to spoil that for you. You're going to run into it now and be like, tell me about this.
Bro, do not worry about it. The only thing I will care about at this point, if you spoil for me, is whatever the pinnacle boss is that
I've not reached that.
No, I haven't read anything. I'm like you, dude. I actually did the craziest thing today. Last night, actually. I unsubscribed from every Path of Exile channel on YouTube because I'm like, I'm going full blind. I just want to play. I'll make videos, but I'm just going to play. I think I can do it.
Yeah.
I'm so confident now going through and making my own build in this game. I think I have all the tools available. I think I can just do it, you know? I don't need to rely on anybody else. It's nice.
And I think they've absolutely nailed that. They have Path of Exile 1, everyone knows the problems were really obscure. They don't really tell you what the tools are to make things work. And even then, crafting in Path of Exile 1, you don't really do it during the campaign. Maybe I'm different. I don't know. Maybe you do. I've never crafted during a campaign for Path of Exile 1 because you just find the loot you need. Whereas now I'm constantly looking at the shop. I'm constantly looking for crafting materials. I think my biggest downfall was I wasn't disenchanting or dismantling enough stuff through the early acts.
Yep.
So that's something I definitely should be doing more. But all the tools are there. They're all right there for you to do it. I love that white bases now have a reason to exist and a reason for me to care about them. It's just the loot, the crafting, all of the tools are there, and they could be a little bit better explained, I reckon. I think they could do a little bit around that. Maybe throw in an early game quest to, a vendor gives you a white base for your main type of weapon. Your mercenary, you get a crossbow. They give you one of each of the orbs or something, and then you just go at it. You're probably gonna end up with shit. Let's be honest. Yeah, but at least it teaches the player how to do it. And same for vendors. I want them to have some kind of marker, so when you go back after a level up, it says, "Hey, this person's got new shit." Because that was something I wasn't really paying attention to. Would have helped me a lot through those early acts, and probably would have solved most of the complaints I had, and they weren't really complaints.
Totally agree with you, dude. I think they need to add a quest for crafting in Act 1 instantly. That's a great idea. They just give you a base of, what you should be using on your class.
Yeah.
And then one of each of the base orbs, the transmute, the aug, and maybe a regal. That's it. That's not making a busted item for a character. That's not increasing a ton of power. That's introducing someone to the system. Because sometimes that's all that's necessary. Have you ever played Dungeons and Dragons?
No, I've never played the tabletop. Like, is in the tabletop?
Really? Yeah,
no,
the tabletop.
I've never played it, but I've listened to podcasts at nauseum. So I understand. I understand it.
You get it. So a lot of the time, what people do in their first session is they have like a railroaded adventure. So it's very on rails. You go from point A to point B, and the story is very basic. And it opens their minds to what Dungeons and Dragons can be. And then it allows people to just build upon that in a sandbox format. They can, organically tell new stories and improv a lot better just after that short introduction. I feel like that's the same for Path of Exile too. They do that crafting quest, they open someone's mind after doing the railroad, and then the sandbox is open to them, especially with all the currency orbs that are now dropping. And they realize, oh my gosh, I can do that with this item and that with this item. Maybe they're just not understanding it right now. Maybe they're clicking the currency orbs, picking them up off the ground. They see, oh, this turns something into magic. Well, I'm just going to save it. I'm just going to pile it up. That's another thing, man. You know what they should do in the crafting quest if they add it? They should have the NPC like subtly say, you should totally use all these, as much as possible. Seriously, to make your items more powerful. Because my dad is playing, and my older friend is playing as well. He's about the same age as my dad. And they were hoarding all their crafting orbs, all of their support gems. And they were
Oh
asking me,
no.
like, I feel like a little weak. And I walk over to my dad's PC, look at his stash, 7 support gems in there, all these crafting orbs, all of his skills have 0 support. Oh my God, dude. It's funny. It's just funny.
It's
So,
good, yeah.
but I totally agree with you. I think that's a great piece of feedback. Send that to Grinding Gear Games. Let's have as many people sign it as possible, Born. Oh,
Yeah,
man.
absolutely. It would make such a difference because that is the problem Path of Exile always had is the onboarding, and the onboarding is so much better in Path of Exile 2. But there's just little tweaks that would help them quite a bit because you just don't have a lot of that game knowledge, and we're coming in with that. We know that you're supposed to put supports in against skills, and the game, they do have that little bit of on rails at the start where it pauses the screen and tells you to dodge roll in that first little fight. They've got all those things which are pretty good. But they could build things into the game where it notices, hey, you've got half your skill gems that don't have supports. You're in Act 2. Maybe it should be like, hey, just look over here for half a second and maybe consider throwing some extra supports in there. You know what I mean? There's little tooltips they could throw in here and there, but I mean they're always a company that's appreciated the meta knowledge, right? Where they let you gain that knowledge and they let you kind of break systems or skip ahead of certain things. So I think they just like players to have that discovery. There is definitely that sense of you don't want to hold the hand too much, right? Because then it just feels like you're not really making the choices yourself. But there are so many choices in Path of Exile 2. I think we could do it just a little bit more for the new players. Because I know my partner as well. She's completely brand new to games. Baldur's Gate 3 was the first one that we played together. And then since then, she's just played it. Got hundreds of hours, if not up to thousands at this point. And I know when she picks up Path of Exile 2, it's going to feel so obscure. It's going to feel so out of place. So I'm going to play co-op with her to make it a little bit easier there. Probably go warrior and just sit at the front tank in a little bit, let her get on top of it. But she's going to need that knowledge, and I'll be there to guide her through that. But if somebody else isn't, really struggles, especially with how demanding and time-consuming the game can be. And I think the respec system's in a really good place in terms of balance. But if you're a brand new player, new to ARPGs, it is going to feel rough.
Most definitely. I think now with the change drops, it should be a little bit better because you're getting more gold. I flip-flopped my opinion on that yesterday and was like, oh my gosh, I just bought this really expensive item. I lost all my gold and I need to respec right now and I can't, and it felt bad. So hopefully now with a better influx of gold and everything, respecs feel a little bit better, especially for new players who are making those mistakes.
I wouldn't mind
Go for it.
Sorry, go on.
Oh, you can go.
Okay, sorry about that. I was going to say, I think a good system would be, because I did this with the Act 2 boss when I was really struggling. I went back to town, respec'd, it cost me the vast majority of my gold, and then it didn't really end up with the power that I thought it would. I think maybe having an undo system might not be the worst option. It just means that you can, the problem would be you could then undo, change it, undo.
People would
find a way to find, or make it so that, I don't know, you know how Path of Exile 1 you get the passive respec points and stuff like that.
They need to add those.
Give you a passive book, or add them for sure. I think add them for sure, because then it teaches people they can do that, because a lot of people may not realize if they don't talk to the hooded one all that much, because you don't really need to. But give me a system that gives me maybe one of those refreshes. Gives me an undo button. So it's like, if you use this, it will save a copy of your current skill tree, and then you can flick back to it if you need to. Just something like that, because that was a big moment for me where I was like, oh, the respec system, great. I did it, kind of messed it up, and I was like, oh, this is going to be a problem. Luckily, I got through. I basically just did a like for like with my build, even after all the respecs. It just ended up being from minion damage to fire damage. It was like no different, but it's still, I think there's maybe something to tweak there, but not a game dev, so I don't really know.
Well, they can learn from Path of Exile 1, I do think they should just add skill respecs as rewards every time you get a book of skill. They're giving you 2 passive points, 2 passive respec points too. Just do it. I think that's great, especially through Acts 1 and 3. Maybe get rid of them in Cruel. That's totally fine. But the first 3 acts, when new players are going to make mistakes, I think they need those free respecs. And then they have that supplementary system of just gold that's very basic. There's no like, oh, you got to find this currency to do it that, you might get unlucky and just not find any of. No, it's gold. You're always going to be getting gold. But with those books on top, I think it would be a lot darn better. Definitely.
Maybe even if they just and maybe this is a bit too much. I haven't thought about the balances around it. Maybe just make it free for the first 3 acts or the first 2 acts. Just it might be a bit much, but I mean, how much are you really changing in the first 2 to 3 acts? I can't remember what I was by the end of Act 1. Probably level what, 30 something, 34, 35. I don't know. I'm actually not too sure what level I was, to be fair, by the end of that. But I don't think that would be too insane, because it's not like you have a ton of gold. It's not like it's going to break the economy because you're going to be saving all of this extra gold. Because really, once you get to maps, the amount you make dwarfs anything you make in those first acts by doing almost 2 maps, right?
Yeah.
So if people can respec for free during those first 2 acts, it gives them opportunities to play around, kind of see what they're feeling. And realistically, the only people that are going to use that are the people that need it. You're not going to break the game by being able to respec endlessly with, 30 passive points or something like that, or put a level cap on it. Once you go past this level, now the cost is actually there. I think there is that option. I think an option, and it would make the game much more accessible, because the last thing you want is players going in, they've got a bad build, they respec into another bad build, and then they feel they're bricked, and the only thing they can do is go to farm gold. But I think that's a very small section of the player base, right?
I think, man, that's a good point. I'm just trying to think. If it was something, a temporary system, in those first 3 acts, or even until maps, it's something that's only available then, just like you only lose XP on death in maps.
Exactly.
Yeah. I can't think off the top of my head of use cases in which that breaks the game. I know that there would be some players, like top players, who would probably abuse it in some way to make sure they have the absolute fastest build, and they like respec for every fight as they're running to the next fight. Right? That happens, but that's what 0.00001% of the player base.
And even then, they are spending the time to do that. So they're not actually going that fast. And sure, if people want to learn how the best they can speed run the early acts, that's that section of the community. Who cares if they're learning how to do that? That's fine. It's them gathering that knowledge. But if it's just the first 30-ish points, you're not going to break the game. There's nothing out of this world you can break. And if you are changing testing, there's no real issue for the late game, because you're not gathering all that currency. You're not going to break the economy in any particular way there. And I think that's what's most important, is if you're not breaking it for other players, I think it's okay.
Do you think it's a remnant of old game design that they just don't want to let go of, potentially? Because that's something that's very true in a lot of old games. Changing your class or changing your skills was always very, very difficult. I'm thinking of games like Baldur's Gate 1 and the like the choices you made, the stats you rolled in Neverwinter Nights 1, you never were going to change those. You only roll them on the character selection screen. Same with games like Guild Wars 1 and the like. You made permanent decisions, and once you made them, there's no going back. Is that just an old thing that they don't want to let go of, perhaps? I'm trying to think, because I know what they've said is, we want decisions to matter. We want you to not be able to just freely change things on a whim. And while I do understand that in late game, I really do, because being able to do that, like, oh, I'm going to fight this pinnacle, I'm just going to change out my build completely. Yeah. Oh, I'm going to fight this pinnacle. Okay, I'm going to change out my build completely. It trivializes the need for, extra characters and da-da-da-da. But early game, trying to think of a negative, I really can't. So I'm thinking maybe it's just a remnant of the past.
I think it's a remnant of the past. And there's probably also the consideration that you don't want to give people an expectation that they're going to lose later on. If you start respecing freely during the campaign, and then, because I see in chat some people are saying till maps would be great. If you can respec freely during the campaign, then you get to maps and you didn't realize that was going to go away. That's a punch in the gut. That just sucks, because then you're like, oh fuck, I didn't plan for this. My build's all over the place. But I mean, you can put that very clearly in the text box, right? Free respecs until maps, or free respecs until level 30, or whatever it is. You can make that very clear to the player. But I think a lot of it is a bit of a holdover. But I think it's so important to have those decisions matter, and I think that's what makes the game good. Like you said, otherwise people would be respecing every single boss. Oh, this pinnacle's weak to ice, I'm going over. This one's weak to fire, I'm going over. It would just be constant. So I think decisions have to matter, and I think that's just the type of game they want. And I'm kind of similar. I like that style of game, and I think of the majority of the games I play, your decisions do matter, and that makes it feel so much better.
It does. I totally agree with you, man. And we've been making a lot of decisions with our skill gems and the like, dude. I gotta know. So you're playing minions, okay? What type of minion build are you running? Do you like doing a mix? Are you focusing on one in particular? I know you said you're trying to go in that full fire fantasy. So I know some Enraging Spirits and like Firewall looked really busted. Is that a combo you're using? What's going on?
It's really busted. Like if anyone's playing a mini build and going for that, it's real busted because you can summon 2 firewalls and immediately you've got 10 raging spirits within like 2 seconds. Also, the raging spirits block projectiles. So if you're running at a group of enemies that are all shooting at you, raging spirits, and the spirits actually will take the projectiles and they'll just tank them for you. Which, as long as they tank enough, that's pretty good. That was really helpful me early game with some of the rooms. Minions I'm finding really good. Some of the minion AI is a bit rough. Now I've got to maps. I've really noticed some of the tighter corridor maps. My minions will struggle to walk through some doors.
Oh.
But that again, I'm not making like it's not a massive issue. It's obviously something that's going to change. But I'm using the arsonists at the moment. I'm using the brutes. I think they are the big guys with the hammers you get at the end.
Okay.
And then I'm using a lot of fire spells behind that mostly. So basically, I'm acting my witch is acting as the debuff. So I'm putting curses. I'm using the incinerate, which reduces exposure, and then I've got the arcanists back throwing fire bombs on top, and then I've got the brutes in the front line just keeping a wall there. And it's coming together. I've just got to do my my ascendancies to get the pyromantic pact, so I can get ignite and ignite magnitude on the minion attacks as well.
Nice. Do you have the blood dog too, or the fire dog too?
Yes,
Or
yeah,
no?
I got the hellhound at the moment. Oh, actually no, I just swapped out of the hellhound. I respect my ascendancies, which cost me a hell of a lot of gold. But I ended up going for the one with more spirit. So I got the resistance node and then the additional spirit, which reserves life, because I wanted more minions.
Hey, we always want more minions, right? If we're playing
That's
a
what you
minion
gotta do,
mancer,
yeah.
we want the horde, dude. Now, did you feel like while leveling, there was a lot of variability when it came to the minions? Did you feel like you were really changing up your play style as you swapped from, say, like only having warriors and archers to also adding clerics into the mix? Or did it seem samey throughout and it didn't really matter what the composition was?
I didn't really change it too much
Okay.
because I was so focused on the fire. So I was trying to get the arcanists obviously to do the fire because they have built-in fire damage, whereas the rest don't. But if I wasn't doing that, there's a hell of a lot of. I mean, Path of Exile 1, you have skeleton warriors. You can get a gem to turn them into mages. You have zombies, and then you have a couple other like specters. You got some other things here and there.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, you kind of either use the warriors, the zombies, or obviously turn into skeleton mages. You've instantly got so many more options right away. I was disappointed the Spectre system wasn't in early access. I didn't realize it wasn't going to be there. That was my existential crisis moment. But the minion gameplay, I was saying this to some friends as well. It's so much more active. Path of Exile 1, you basically use the skill that summons corpses, then you explode them for the offering to all your minions, and you kind of almost just repeat that. You just repeat those spells, and kind of obviously you summon your skeletons. But now I'm like, I'm looking for debuffs. I'm throwing down curses. I'm throwing down my own spells like my firewalls to get my raging spirits out. I'm using my incinerate to debuff the enemies. It's so much more active, and not having to resummon the minions is so good. I was worried it might be a little overtuned, but if the fact that it's got the 7-second timer and then it resets if a minion dies, so it's another 7 seconds. Like if your minions aren't strong enough, you definitely feel it, which is perfect for the playstyle.
Mm. Yeah, so there you did see like a linear curve to actually buffing your minions and them getting stronger and them surviving boss battles. Maybe they're starting to die a little bit, so you're like, oh, I'm going to shift my playstyle a little bit. Maybe add this buff in there. So there is that wiggle room.
There is definitely that wiggle
Okay.
room. I mean, I've only done the campaign once. It definitely was a situation of which same PoE1 where it's like minions are surviving just fine, and then they start like a few levels later they're all dying. So I go into the passive tree, put in some resistance nodes or some health nodes and all that. I found the damage lacking a little bit, but I did split my damage, so that was probably my bad there.
Okay. And I'm curious too. I've talked to like 2 people now about like minions and everything, essentially. So in Act 3 boss, we won't name them or anything. Lots of big AoE attacks. Are your minions, do they just die every time there's one of those AoE attacks, or do they live through it? At least maybe 1 or 2 of them.
They would often die.
Yeah.
They would often die, but that's not too bad again. But that's on me because I think I split the damage. There was definitely a lot more minion health nodes, minion resistance nodes that I could have taken,
Okay.
and then they probably would have done better. I could have also mixed up. I had the scepter that gave me skeleton warriors. I could have mixed it up. There's a scepter that gives you like passive energy shield in your presence, so you can give your minions energy shield. Like so, depending on the scepter you use, like there's one that gives a crit debuff to enemies, so they're more likely to be crit. There's all those different types of things. There's a lot to play with there that I wasn't really bothering to think about. because I was
Okay.
getting through it. Like I would generally, do a boss a couple of times. My minions would die, but my fire damage was making up for it. And then I
Right,
build up the
right,
stun, and once they were stunned, it was just everything, just absolutely just throwing on it, and it was pretty good.
right. I'm curious if I know you say the damage feels a little lacking now, but if you do scale it properly, that you're going to be able to spec into both minions and fire and have it feel good. Because I know a thing they were pushing is obviously the combos and everything, but also
Yeah, yeah.
multi-weapon swapping. Are you playing with that at all? I assume maybe
I
you are.
haven't.
You haven't.
No, I
Okay, so it's all in the
haven't.
way the
I
same
haven't
set.
at this point.
Okay,
Yeah.
I haven't either.
Yep. Yeah, I haven't. I was surprised, and maybe this was just me being a bit clueless. I didn't realize the weapon set skill points were the same as your passive skill points. I didn't realize they were one in the same. When I first got my weapon set skill points, I was trying to put them in after I'd spent the skill points. I was like, why won't these things work? It's because I didn't have actual passives. I thought they would be their own specific set. I can kind of understand why they didn't do that. I've not really messed with the weapon sets, mostly because it's not really working for my build at the moment. Most of the ones I find are all spell related, and obviously the scepters are minion related. So I've kind of got those two things. But I do need to be on the lookout for that. I think that's again my PoE one brain. I'm not really thinking about it. I'm not really looking for it. I'm going to start up a mercenary probably today. So I'm curious to try that out a bit more. But I think where that's really going to shine is those melee classes, right? Like the warrior and stuff like that, or the monk and the sorceress.
Yeah, I'm going to try to make the monk one work, maybe with lightning and cold once I get into endgame. I do think specking heavily into one of the elements is probably going to be the way to go. Like I'm doing lightning right now, man. Oh, the black, everything's melting at this point. It's so cool. You feel like you're Darth Maul, but a good Darth Maul because you got the blue stuff flying out of your quarterstaff and everything. Oh, and I made a mistake, Born. Oh, I didn't look at the tags of the gems. So there's this one
Oh,
ability, Charge Staff, and you fly out lightning projectiles, right? I think they even call them lightning projectiles in the gem description. So I thought, oh yeah, totally. Like Scattershot is going to work with this. Chain will work with this. I didn't look at the spell, the gem tag. So I carved a level 2 support gem for chain support, and it's not considered a projectile skill gem. So I was like, oh
brutal.
no. It would probably do P2 busted, man. I just have blue stuff flying all over the screen every which way. It would be so cool. But it's okay. We have a lot of different stuff to experiment with here. So you said you're going to try mercenary second.
Yeah, I think. Well, I flip flop. I'm flip flopping so much on the characters. I because I want to try them all, and that's
Me
what
too.
I think that's the biggest strength of Path of Exile 2 is everything feels so different. Like the classes feel like I played a little bit of mercenary yesterday. I'm like a couple of missions into Act 1, so I'm not very far at all, like level 5. And it's a completely different game. It is completely different, which again you didn't get from Path of Exile 1. It was either I'm shooting an ability with the bow or I'm casting a spell, and it's just a ranged hit. No matter what, you're just kind of hitting. Whereas now it's there's so much more depth to combat with the dodging and all the elemental status effects and stuff like that. I'm glad they didn't just go for more of the same.
I am as well. And it's going to serve them well, hopefully, in the long run, if they can manage PoE 1 and PoE 2 at the same time. And they're putting out updates for PoE 1, which is a very distinct ARPG, and then Path of Exile 2, which also is incredibly different. So hopefully it works, man. I'm curious about that too. So a lot of people, obviously, you said you watched my video about the Reddit feedback.
Yep.
A lot of people are still a little shocked that it's not more like Path of Exile 1 in terms of gameplay and like the systems, as in loot, right? And the bosses and everything. As I've progressed a little bit, I feel like it's like fighting the bosses and everything in Cruel feels like I'm fighting the Path of Exile 1 bosses at this point, but they're just cooler, right? I wonder if people just need a little bit more time in the game.
Yeah.
Someone in my chat yesterday said, the pizza needs to sit a little bit outside the oven before we, eat it and then critique it, right? Because if everybody just starts eating it instantly, right, they're going to be like, what the hell? This pizza's way too hot. Why are we having this pizza, right? So I'm wondering if it's just like, obviously critiques are good, feedback is good, but saying this is like, this is nothing like PoE 1. This is a bad game. I feel like it's too soon for that. I know it probably isn't great for us to be doing the opposite and being like, this is the perfect game. This is the best game. But
yeah, would open anyone.
But if you're going in bashing it like and hopping, right? And you're not avidly playing it. Like at this point, I wonder how long those people have played. Because how long have you played so far, Born? At this point,
Almost exactly 50 hours.
50 hours. See, so we're playing. We're having a good time. I'm like 38 hours or something. I'm having a great time. So I do feel like I have a little bit more weight behind me saying, "Wow, I really enjoy this game. This is a good game. This is a great game." Because I've been playing it. I've been enjoying it. It's not like I played it for 2 hours, hopped off, and then said, "This is the best game ever." I cannot be refuted, right? So
Yeah.
I'm curious. Do you think it's fair to rate it as a bad game already, or do you think more time needs to be spent with it?
No. I think anyone who within a day of it is saying that it's a bad game is probably jumping the gun a little bit. I really appreciate the motto of the Helldivers studio. That's what is it? A game for everyone is a game for no one type thing. This is absolutely not going to appeal to a lot of ARPG fans purely because it's taking the genre in a completely different direction. Obviously, No Rest for the Wicked did something very similar with their combat style and their ARPG. It's just moving the genre in a kind of a different direction. It's not remaining a Diablo like where you're just running through screens, deleting things, stuff like that. You actually have to think. You have to slow down. And I know for me, like as somebody who played a lot of PoE1, I would honestly just put on YouTube videos or like shows, and I would sit here just mindlessly just watching it while I'm just powering through maps. Because most of the time I'm going to get through the map. Occasionally there'll be a rare that has something on it that just one shots me, or is just a bit too strong. Has Soul Eater, and I didn't notice it had eaten every soul in the goddamn map and killed me because I'm just watching my TV show. Whereas now I can't do that, and that's fine because I love that. I want to be more engaged, but I think it is, especially for those PoE1 players who weren't consuming a lot of the content. For those Diablo players who came over and thought, oh, this is just a prettier, shinier ARPG with more systems. It's like, no, this is completely different. This is absolutely different. The gameplay style is very different. It is very punishing. I think those 1 to 3 acts as well were the hardest for me so far. Like they were quite a challenge. So I think a lot of people are getting that. They're not used to dying to bosses. I think that's it. And I think that's, I don't want to keep comparing it to the Soul series. I'm not trying to do that here. But in the Soul series, you expect to die to bosses, right? You expect to. That's part of the game. That's part of the learning style. In ARPGs, you don't expect to die super frequently unless you're kind of out of position or in the wrong space. And Jonathan was very open about he expected people to die to every boss 2 or 3 times. And that's kind of been my experience. With Minions, I kind of got through most of them first time. But again, got the PoE knowledge, was knowing what to expect. I've consumed every piece of content under the sun. For those new people coming in who hadn't done that, the people who hadn't been, subscribed to our channels or other channels,
right?
You wouldn't go into an ARPG expecting to die that much. I mean, they set that expectation early, which I think is really good, but I think there's still that disconnect in the community. And especially, obviously, the loudest part of the community is the hardcore PoE1 players that don't like it. They are going to be the loudest. The PoE1 players who are loving it, they're not even looking at the subreddit. Like, I'm not looking at the subreddit. I've seen a couple of things. I've looked a couple of times, but I have not been touching YouTube, not been touching Reddit nearly as much as I normally would, purely because I've put 50 hours into Path of Exile 2. I've got other things to do. Whereas the people who have put in, 4 hours and they didn't really like it because they kept getting hard stuck on a boss.
Yeah.
It's the vocal minority, I reckon.
Yeah. And if you have feedback, guys, the best place to go, I'm going to keep saying it, it's the Path of Exile forums. Grinding Your Games is reading feedback too. I'm not going to say the contents of the conversations, but I also talked to some GGG devs. They are taking our feedback in stride right now, and we're already seeing it with the changes that they are making. They're listening, they're consuming all the content. I think they're on like holiday right now, a lot of them, because it's like, oh my gosh, we got it out. There's no big server issues, like all the big bugs, a few people can fix. We're going to get more content out later. We're chilling for a little bit, which makes total sense. I mean, it was a big release, man. So
absolutely. And they shot themselves in the foot doing it a couple of weeks out from Christmas. But
right,
that delay,
exactly.
Man, that delay would have been brutal for them.
100%. And it's summer in New Zealand too. So, right? Are you technically in summer in Australia?
Yeah.
Okay,
so I live in Perth, and it is, I don't know how to convert to Fahrenheit, but it's 41, 42 degrees today for us.
Okay, that's pretty hot, I think.
That's quite hot.
In Fahrenheit, yeah. It's winter here, and it actually was pretty warm today. It's in 42 degrees Fahrenheit, so very close to the Celsius, but that's 10 degrees above freezing. So it's.
Oh, okay, shit. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, our freezing obviously is 0, so 40 is quite high. Boiling is 100, so we're halfway
Right.
to boil, almost halfway to boiling.
You're so close to boiling, man. Yeah. So I don't know. I've been talking to a lot of people now the past few days in Twitch chat. You know, now you, Lighty, my wife, my close friends. If you could sum up your experience with Path of Exile 2 in under a minute, how would you do so?
Oh God, how would I do so?
Yeah, I'm gonna put a timer up too. So I'm gonna time. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Okay. I almost need the timer actually because I'm gonna go over the minute. Better and more. That's literally just it. It's just everything is much more engaging. I am loving that out of the gate in Act 1, I am crafting items. I am loving that I am having to pay attention to boss moves and actually look at it instead of only doing that for the end game Pinnacle PoE 1 content. That's the only time I would ever pay attention to boss mechanics in Path of Exile 1. Path of Exile 2, very first boss, I'm paying attention to the mechanics. I see him charging up, great, I'm rolling out of the way. I think they have nailed it across the board. There is not a single system that I look at and think that is awful or that needs to change heavily. Anyway, I think there's tweaks definitely needed across the board. If I was going to make one complaint, I would say I'm a little unsure about the trial or ascendancies being locked behind the trials. I think the trials can be a little RNG based.
Oh yeah.
But that might still be me being in the PoE 1 brain. But I know, you know, I need to do my third ascendancy at the moment. I'm level like 72, I think. I attempted it once and getting through Trial of Sekhmet 3 times with the RNG behind it. Sometimes you just get a bit unlucky with the boons and the afflictions, and that feels a little bit bad. But I think once I get used to it, that might be fine. Like if I was a brand new PoE 2 player, I think I'd be having, well, I'm having a blast now, but I think I'd be having as equally a good time.
Yeah. Hey, that was great. That was a minute 10 seconds, dude.
About a minute? Okay.
That was excellent, dude. Yeah, great. And I agree with you on that last point too. What they did, maybe accidentally or maybe without thinking, you know, too much about it, they lifted all the mods from PoE 1 and just put them into PoE 2 with no changes. So
okay.
they are definitely changing. You know, in the Ultimatum Trial of Chaos, there's like a mod that's all monsters hit crits or hits crit. Bro, no.
Wild. I picked Impending Doom as one of my trials. Went into the Bloodbird because I can't remember the name. And the Impending Doom, like I was fighting the bird, I was next to it, and then the circle took up the whole arena. It was literally the whole arena. Right. Luckily, I survived that hit, and then I had to pay attention to where I was, and it became a gameplay mechanic at that point where I had to run to the edge of the screen because I knew it was coming. It would start there. I could run to the other side. So again, that complaint, I worked it out. It was a gameplay mechanic I just had to learn, and that is every part of this game. Every time I fail at something, I'm like, that was my fault. I've not failed at any point in Path of Exile 2 or died or whatever, and thought this game is shit. I thought that was my bad. I took on too many mobs. I was out of position. I wasn't paying attention to the boss because I was too busy looking at a YouTube video I've got playing in the background or something stupid like that. It's so well balanced. Obviously, knowing that it needs balance changes, it's so well balanced.
Yeah, I agree with you. Almost 99%. I died one time and I thought this game is total shite. Those hags, the river hags that create the drowned orbs. Oh my god, those
I was very surprised
go...
to see them put the screen effect on for that.
Oh, they did, man, and it pissed me off when I died. And then they're in Act 1 on the riverbanks again. Oh no! Grinding your games. No. 0 out of 10. Negative Steam review. Get rid of the river hags, or you're getting a 0 out of 10 on Steam. I can't do it.
How are the Steam reviews actually? I've not looked. Okay, it's very positive.
They're mostly positive. I believe they're 80% positive, despite the day one huge Steam fiasco in which a lot of people hadn't redeemed their stuff and the Path of Exile website was down, so they couldn't even play on the launch day.
Classic Renegade games. Everything's just a little bit obscure, a little bit too obscure when it probably could be a little bit easier, because I gave away a couple of keys just because I bought that supporter pack and had nowhere to put them. And yeah, I had a few people coming back being like, oh, it's not working. Like, nope, you got to go to their website, put it in there, go through this bit of a rigmarole. It's just, they're so close. Every system is so close to perfection.
Yeah. There are those little tidbits that need improvement. Another thing, let's just fire them out there. The current Path of Exile 2 feedback is on the pathofexile.com website. They need their own Path
Oh,
of Exile 2 form, dude. They just
yeah,
need it, you know? So
yeah.
it's early access, though. I feel like in 6 to 12 months, they are going to have a lot of this stuff ironed out, and the content in the game is going to be so ballooned, man. Oh my gosh. I still can't believe we don't have axes, swords, shapeshifting, claws, daggers, traps. All this stuff is coming into the game. More spells from the druid. Okay.
That blows my mind. It blows my mind that we have probably less than half of the actual content in the game right. Well, literally less than half of the content in game right now. That and the fact that it's 10 times bigger than most or pretty much any other ARPG.
It's
Wild.
big.
Wild. They came out swinging with this one for sure.
Which class are you most excited for that's not currently in the game?
It's not currently in the game. I'm really interested. Not that we've seen anything. I'm really interested to see what they do with the shadow, the assassin. I think it's the shadow. Yeah, the shadow.
Yeah.
I'm really interested to see what they do with that and with traps, because I know we saw a couple of traps shown off like at one of the Exile cons ages ago, at like proximity or like timer or whatever it is. I'm interested to see what they do with that mechanic. Otherwise, for some reason, I'm weirdly excited about Templar. I'm like, again,
bro, everybody.
really curious to see what they do with that.
Oh yeah. You got to see what they're doing with the flails and stuff, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely, yeah. Because I had a look at some of the nodes near where the Templar should start, the Templar and the Druid, and there's stuff in there about buffing allies like right out the gate. So I don't know if they're really trying to market that as a co-op class and maybe trying to angle it that way, which I don't think is awful to have a class that is particularly good in co-op, because that is the game, right? So certain classes are good in certain places. What about yourself? Which one are you really looking forward to?
bro, it's the druid. 100%. Oh, I'm going to turn into a bear so hard, Born Reddy. Oh my God. It's going to be good. I don't care if it sucks, but they're not going to make it suck. It's going to be good. I just know they're going to make it busted.
Yeah, they're going to make it absolutely bust. I was really surprised they didn't make it into early access. When they announced it wasn't coming, I couldn't believe it because we'd seen so much of it over time. I'm going to assume it was a balance issue potentially, or maybe some skills or weird stuff with the transformations, because I know the demon form transformation has had some problems, like some bugs and some issues here and there. So I can imagine they probably had similar issues for all the random transformations the druid has as well.
I asked Jonathan,
I think what I'm most excited for as well is we have more than double the amount of ascendancies still to come.
We have 1/3.
Just
1/3 of the total ascendancies, bro. Oh my God. A lot. It's a lot. In 12 months. In 12 months somehow. Yeah. And on why the druid's not in, I asked Jonathan, there is a third form that is being finished. A third core form. So we've got wolf, we've got bear, and we have no idea what the third form could be.
What do you reckon it's going to be?
What's your guess? I don't know. I think it would be cool if it was some sort of. We already have the flying with the succubus or the demon form. It would be cool if it was some sort of like reptile, maybe, or dinosaur, maybe like a triceratops. No, I'm just kidding. But
oh my God, the amount that would just boost you as well if it just happened to be a triceratops. Oh my God, everyone would be talking about it. Everyone would be comparing it to you. I actually mentioned that on the video you mentioned earlier, my class video that did quite well. I asked people what they wanted to see, and I got a lot of people saying dinosaur as well. I would love to see them do a monster that's only in Path of Exile, like whether it's one of the big ape, like the quad apes with like the 4 arms. Or even like maybe not a rower, but like a big rower or something. Just something that only exists in that universe, so it ties it more into the world. I think would be, because we all know what a bear looks like, we all know what a wolf looks like. I want to see one of these crazy animals be the druid transformation, because the druid lives in this world, doesn't live in our world. This is a game. I want to see that.
I love it. The only reason, so Quadrilla, dude, 10 out of 10 pod for saying that. I love the Quadrilla. I think that'd be a great bear MTX. Like Quadrilla, Quadrilla MTX. I'm thinking of something that like is so hopefully distinctly different from the wolf and the bear. And I don't know. You're right though. It should be something in Ray class. Like Roa would be pretty good, I think, at this point.
I think Roa would be all right. And then because I mean there's the Roa mount. If I can turn into a Roa and have a friend jump on my back and just start shooting, that'd be so funny. It wouldn't be good, but for the meme value alone, it would be just incredible.
Yeah. Oh, somebody in chat said, what if they do a snake? Dude, only grinding gear games could make a snake form work where you literally slither around. Oh my God, dude. Oh, that'd be so cool.
I see somebody saying spider form. I could definitely see them doing spider form. Because you could there's a lot of spells there, right? That's an easy one to do. I could absolutely see that.
Oh, so many possibilities, man. So many possibilities. And we're only 5 days in. Now, I'm
Yeah.
asking almost everybody this question. Well, these two questions. Okay. I want to close with one. There's a pinnacle boss in the Atlas. We received like no hints as to what it is.
Which
What
I
do you
love.
think
Yep.
the boss is?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Like,
It's hard to say because we don't know where
uh-huh.
the full story goes.
Right.
I honestly have no real clue.
Okay.
Obviously, obviously in the end game, we know corruption's still there, but I'm trying to work out, is that remnants of corruption? Because usually when you get to the end, you beat the big bad guy, right? So I'm kind of assuming end of Act 6, we're going to beat the beast again. Maybe we don't. Maybe the beast moves into the end game and maybe it is the beast. I think that would be kind of cool.
Oh,
Because then that would be the
interesting.
actual end to the story instead of, because it is very jarring. Not that I'll be honest, I never really got into the story of PoE1. It is just ARPG, especially with the text. Even now I'm just like, all right, all right, all right, all right. I'm like, I'll get into the story on full release. I don't have it all, so I'll get into it full release. But I'm probably lying to myself, I'll be honest. But it would be really cool
Okay.
if you get to the end of Act 6 and it's like you get some major win, maybe you take out some major baddie, but then it's like, and the beast has moved here. Let's go find it. We got to get into the maps. Actually wouldn't hate that. It might feel a little anticlimactic for the campaign, but like, to be honest, if you're about to go into the end game, does it need to be climactic?
Yeah, no, I totally get that. I think that makes total sense. I think that's a great guess, dude. Nobody said that before. And with the
What are
build
some of the
up,
guesses? I'm curious.
some of the guesses, Izaro, Zana, like, a corrupted Izaro of some sort because it looks like labyrinthine. Some
Oh,
people have
true, true,
said
true.
Zana. This is, Zana's gone here and now she's all jaded. Another person has said Kalandra. It's a
Oh,
legit Kalandra fight, right? So that could be kind of cool.
okay.
There's been a lot of just I'm saying the Molten one, which Crucible. You interact with him.
Oh,
He's
yeah,
like one of
yeah,
the
yeah.
first creatures ever in all of Rayclast. So I was thinking maybe it could be the Molten one. It could be anything, and I'm gonna try like hell to avoid seeing what it is because like I said, I feel like I can get there. I feel like I can push my build with the tools that I have in game,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
that's so
I
great.
don't want to see anything. How are you feeling about, because I've not had this, I've not run into an issue yet because I've not versed any of the Pinnacle content. How do you feel about the fact that it's a death and you're out for Pinnacle
I
content?
feel like I am going to need to play very, very carefully. Um, Although that opinion has changed a little bit now that I'm in Cruel and I invested some in defenses, especially defensive auras or buffs. They're not auras. I feel much tankier now. I upgraded my
Okay.
gear. I have resistances, so I'm not dying nearly as often. So I'm feeling okay with it. I feel like as long as I'm playing well and paying attention and engaged, I'm gonna be fine. When I was first playing Acts 1 through 3, I thought, oh my gosh, how am I going to progress through the Atlas? I'm going to brick my Atlas almost instantly, guys. But I'm feeling better as I progress, seeing that there are forms of defense that I can realize and invest
Mm.
into without needing to consult outside resources and perfectly manufacture my build. Because I used to always have to do that in Path of Exile 1. I couldn't connive it myself, really. I always had to look at PoE Ninja or get advice from somebody. But in this,
Yeah.
I feel a lot better with build making.
No, I completely agree. PoE1, I pretty much never made my own build. And that was more so a time issue. Whereas like if I'm committing time into Path of Exile, I don't want to get to level 60 and realize I've built myself into a corner and then have to get a bunch of Orb of Regrets. That's a nightmare. Now that I can respec freely, and it's just a bit of game time, I don't plan to look at build guides at all. I plan to completely stay away from them. Obviously, at some point in the future, I probably will just have a look at what other people are doing. But I'm loving the discovery phase. I don't want that to end. I really don't want the discovery to end. You get one chance at all this stuff, and this is it now. So I took the time off work. I've been absolutely smashing it because I want to make
Awesome.
sure I get that experience before it's spoiled. But for the pinnacle stuff, I mean, I'm curious to see when I get there. But I think depending on how long it takes you to get prepared for that fight, get to that fight. I would hate for the labyrinth to brick after a certain time. Although I know they've made some changes with the Atlas, so you can lose maps, but you can't brick them anymore. Like they remain you can just redo them, which I think was probably a good change. It just takes away the modifiers. You may know that already.
I didn't know that. When did that happen?
I don't know
Today?
when that happened. No, well,
Oh,
this was me playing. Well, I say playing yesterday. It was me playing like 12 hours ago, 14 hours, 8 hours ago, in fact, because I went to bed very late. But yeah, I went into a map with a breach. The breach was in like literally a corner, so it was in here. I did it. Obviously, immediately got surrounded and died because it was just nuts. And then when I came out and looked back, the map was still there, but it no longer had the breach on it. So it was just a complete base map. There was no real benefit to me running it other than to progress through the end game. So instead of closing the map, you can now just redo it, but you lose any modifier, modifier that was on the map, if that makes sense.
Curious. Okay. I wonder. Wow, that's an interesting change.
Which I think was probably a good idea, because if you end up bricking your north side of the map for some reason, and maybe that's where your labyrinth is, you're gonna have to do a whole circle to get around. It seemed like a good change to me.
See, yeah, because thinking about it, I was scared about it. That was one of the things that I was really scared about. But I'm still not in an end game, so I don't really have an opinion. But that's gonna save me. So yay! I'm not gonna brick my atlas. Oh, thank goodness, because I know I'm just gonna die. And
because I've definitely died a few times in maps, and I would have had some trouble getting to the labyrinth if they hadn't made that change.
Yeah. I'm wondering if they're still going to do the whole mechanic wherein if you die to one of the lieutenants of the pinnacles, that the pinnacle runs, or now if they're going to give you some more chances. I'll be really curious to find out. It sounds like it was a stealth change there. So, because I did like some form of consequence for dying if you're trying to get to a pinnacle and it's like, okay, now you're really getting locked in. Now you're really getting sweaty. Make sure you're playing well. And if you don't play well, bam, you're out. So we'll see though. Yeah. We'll see how it feels.
I want that consequence too. I think I definitely want that consequence. I think bricking maps and making it harder to get to the content was definitely a rough move. So I think this is a good one. I am curious as well to see if dying to a lieutenant will make the pinnacle run, because I could see that being something that maybe not in the player interest. I don't know, especially if dying to the lieutenant bricks the lieutenant, then I guess that is what it is. But also, I guess just learn the game and get good.
It's gonna be interesting, man. We're in for a crazy 6 to 12 months of early access. Now, I want to ask you the final question. It's a big one, so don't feel like you're gonna have to answer it in a quick second. Okay. You've been playing a lot of games, obviously. It sounds like you're a huge Souls fan, huge Elden Ring fan. You played PoE 1. I'm sure you played a lot of other titles. If you could add one feature to Path of Exile 2 to make it better, what do you think that would be? Like, just something that might be missing, right? Any ideas? Make it a better ARPG.
To make it a better RPG. There's nothing immediate. Let me look at what I've recently played. Let me get that over on the side.
Oh, go for it. Yeah. Like a fundamental gameplay mechanic. Like mine right now, honestly, dude, is like a transmog system like Diablo 4. That'd be so cool in Path of Exile 2. And I wish Grinding Games would do it. I don't think they'll ever do it though.
Yeah, a transmog system would be, that would be nice. There's honestly nothing I can really think of that I'd want. The only thing that comes to mind is the Spectre system. Give me the Spectre system.
There we go.
I know that's coming though. I know it's coming, so that's a bit of a lame answer. But I honestly, the game is that good. With the current systems, I can't really think of anything that is missing. The crafting's there, the itemization for me is there, the combat's there. And those are definitely your main pillars. The player-driven economy, that is so good. I love that about grinding gear games and ARPGs. I can't believe other ARPGs are releasing without that. Not to point fingers, but that's wild to me, because I need that end game chase. That's what keeps me going in these games, is that end game chase and be able to trade with players and find something. Because if you find something valuable but it's not for your character and you can't sell it to somebody else, oh my god, that is the worst feeling, right? Because then you just feel like that could have been something for me and it's not for me. Whereas if it drops and you can sell it, sorry, I've completely gone off topic there. But it's that stuff. It's like it's all there. If I do think of something though, I'll flick you a message sometime. All
right, yeah, we'll edit it in post.
Take that one on notice.
Yeah, we'll just edit it in post. It'll be totally fine. All right, I'll act like I'm you. Okay, I'll add it to the YouTube video after. It'll be fine. It'll be good. Well,
put on an Australian accent for me when you do it.
I can do it. Hey, I've done it in Dungeons and Dragons. It's offensive, but 99% of my accents are very offensive. I'm not meaning to be offensive. It's just I'm trying too hard to not be offensive, and it just ends up going into the realm of me being bad. Worse, yeah. So, exactly. Yep. My brother, because he thinks he's so funny, gives all of his drow, which are the dark elves who live in the Underdark, the world below, an Australian accent because they're from the land down under.
That's gold. I love that. That's exactly what you want in Dungeons and Dragons. That kind of humor.
He does it. He gets away with it. Instead of instead of kangaroos and crazy, there's like, you know, the giant spiders and the stuff, and there's whatever. That's super off topic, man. Born, it has been awesome talking to you. Any final thoughts at all about PoE2?
Oh, look, to anyone listening who's thinking about getting in, do it. Jump in, have a good time, and ignore everything. Don't look at the Reddits. Don't ignore the YouTube, because
no. Ignore the YouTube.
Try.
No, just
try.
No. Just do it. Do it.
But yeah, like
ignore the YouTube.
I would say, like, feel free to watch YouTube videos, but don't watch guides. Don't watch guides on how to do act bosses. Don't watch guides on how to get through acts. Sure, maybe you watch a tutorial on how to craft. Sure, maybe you watch a tutorial on what items should be. You know, look at the educational stuff, but don't spoil anything for yourself, and try to be careful around not spoiling it, and make your own build. I can't stress that enough. Trial and error. This is the whole purpose of the game. You're not racing anyone. I think there's too much of an expectation on people to be, oh, my favorite streamer's at endgame. I should be there. I better look up a guild so I can a guide so I can get there quickly. I need to be there as well. You don't need to be there. Take the time. Enjoy your build, because that's what I'm loving the most. Is every time I get a level up, I'm like, oh, what do I need? Do I need a little bit more minion health? Do I need more fire damage? Oh, I really want to achieve this goal. Like, I have a goal in mind. How do I build to get there? Because that is the fun. That is the experimentation. So just absolutely go for it.
Absolutely beautiful closing, Born Reddy. Anybody who's watching this VOD, anybody who's on Twitch or on YouTube right now, make sure you go check out Born Reddy's YouTube channel. It's great. He's doing Path of Exile 2 content. He does other games. I'm sure there'll be other games in the future, but right now, lots of cool Path of Exile 2 stuff while you are blasting and playing the game and enjoying it. Enjoy your videos, man. This was a great chat. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's been a blast. I've had a great time, and thanks to the chat as well. I can see some people in there saying new segment, call it Ready to Try. Not a bad idea.
There you go. There you go. We could do some shorts, man. Ready to try X and Y and Z. It would be really, really good.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. Thanks so much again for having me on. Good to
All right,
be here.
100%, dude. And if you are watching this video right now and you haven't clicked the like button or the subscribe button, what are you doing? This video is 1 hour and 9 minutes. You got to do it. All right. And I will see you all in the next video. Telakura, my fellow exiles, stay sane.